As we take a look at your starts here, remind you once again, you have to be very safety oriented when you do practice starts and have a minimum of 4 to 6 feet, preferably 6 feet of water underneath you when you practice starts. So we take a look at the positions here. Position on the block looks fairly good, maybe just a tad too much bent in the knees here. You also have your elbows bent, and it's not really easy. You want to keep those arms perfectly straight, just with the first knuckle or the first digit over the edge of the block. Not tilting, leaning either way, but just stable so that you can explode, react to the sound of the gun or the beep. But I don't like to see bent elbows on the block here. I'm going to put up this, I call a shoulder line, and then a kind of like a hip line right here. And again, the idea is the hips go above, shoulders go above that line during the start. So we get you rolling here. Again, there's a little raise in the shoulders, but just a little too late. You want to be, again, raising those shoulders just a little earlier. Again, the first thing that you're going to do here is reaction, and the shoulders are going to go up. You can see you take a little too long to get those shoulders above the line. By this time your hips have come down, so you want to be reacting into kind of like this position here versus where you are, and then you go real late. Actually, you get the hips driving off just a little too late, so you're in a position here where you never really establish a full pike position. And again, this is kind of like the line, your entry line, and you get a little collapse there just towards the end. Not too bad. You just a little, you need just the timing of the dive is that you just want to get the shoulders going up a little earlier in the dive. And again, and that'll help you drive the hips up a lot sooner. See, right here is where the hips should be driving up. Right here, you should be driving up in this direction with your hips, and here you drive just a fraction late, just a fraction late on that angle, and you get up to where you almost get over the top, very close. I mean, you're very close to having a really good dive. You get a little bit of collapse right there at the end, almost the whole body through the same hole. And again, go back and look at his right here. You can see that your hand entry is on this plane and your feet entry came down on another plane, and that just opened up a bigger hole than you wanted underwater. You can see this is the, again, you wanted everything to go down the same plane. The streamlining down here is very, very good. I really like the streamlining. Nice tight kick, really great streamline. You head down, tuck back your arms, very, very good. Yeah, excellent. Did a lot of things really well once you got in the water. As we take a look at your individual strokes here, I'm going to kind of slice and dice here a little, find some things that we can look at and kind of identify that you can work on. Okay, I'm going to go back up to here. As you take a look at the strokes here, again, the recovery, you're locking the arms, you're getting the hands in nice and tight, right where I like to see them entry, the entry made. Just and this is a minor adjustment, and it's something that you can work on, think about, and that is, you know, I don't, again, this is just a personal preference, and I think really helps in the long run. You're swinging your arms in from the outside in. You can see the last action kind of outside in this direction. What I'd like to see is a little more rotating the arm in the shoulder socket this way, coming in a little more, say at a 45-degree angle instead of a very low angle into the entry point. I like where the hands are entering. The only other thing I think it would be good to change is that you're going in palm down It's really easy to trap air the way your hands are going in right now. The ideal way is to go in thumbs down, and again the idea that the thumbs down will allow you to again wipe and wash the air off the hands as you extend forward underneath the surface of the water. This is real good. Again, hips up to the surface, shoulders going down, hands at the surface. That's very good. Again, you can see that nice undulation rhythm, that pattern right there, the way you have everything. Good. You can see the last trail of bubbles coming off your hands right there. And you're taking your first stroke right here. Now, the real key here you can see is, again, these fingertips. See, here's your wrist joint, here are your fingertips, and again, the real key is you've got your lats involved, and I can see your lats working here, which is real important. But again, you've got to pitch those fingertips down towards the bottom of the pool to really put the pressure in this direction to drive your body in that direction. You can see just through that period right there, that front period, you're not getting good leverage on the water, you're not getting a good grip on the water, so to speak, because you've got that little break in the wrist. And this looks fine. Again, you want to remember to flex that wrist on the way out. Okay. Kind of, there's still a little bubble turbulence right here, but there's your wrist right there. And you're not flexing the hand. See the hand right here? You want to flex that wrist on the way out. So again, you want to be about in this position and then snap in that wrist as it goes out. It's something that you've got to think about. It's fairly subtle, but you've got to be aware of. Looking at the breathing pattern, again, I like the way you're breathing. You could tilt your head just a little further forward, just tilt it into it just a fraction, extend your neck out just a little, and it'll help. So the real subtle things that you have to work on here, again, that recovery, just rotating a little more in the shoulder socket. I'd like to see you get your thumbs in first, and that'll help you eliminate air off the hands. I mean, you don't have any because you extend really well at the surface, but again, when you fatigue sometimes some of your errors start to glare up a lot more than they do when you're feeling fresh and fairly strong. And then most of all, work on pitching the fingertips down, especially in that kind of 3-4 position when you're really establishing position on the water. Make sure that you have the elbow up, fingertips pitched down towards the bottom of the pool. Look at this left arm first here. Again, the entry looks pretty good. Maybe just overreaching just a tad. See, your chin's just a little too much on your chest. Again, the head should be in the position, but just the chin lifted up to about this level right there. And again, this allows you to get a much easier pathway for breathing and rides the head a little better on the position on the water. Say this again, the position isn't there's no problem with the position. You can see some air coming off your hand right here, but my opinion is it's a little deep, right? And this elbow is fine in terms of its position, but it's just going down just a little too deep. You want to be a little shallower with this left arm below the surface of the water. Into the upsweep, down sweep, and you can see you're swimming a little more of a traditional backstroke. This is your hand finishing way down below the surface of the water. And again, what I talked about was a finish sweep that ended out up pretty close to the surface next to the hips. And again, this is more of a traditional style backstroke. Right arm entering the water right here. Again, doing a pretty good job entering the water. Two things right here. One is take a look at this leg kick and how much bend there is in the knee right here. And again, it's real important with the backstroke, especially that you're very conscientious about keeping a nice, tight, compact kick. And again, this creates a, I think in some ways this gets your head tilting back this way where your chin goes on your chest, gets your hips to sink a little because, again, you're just like throwing out an anchor. You know, just again, just it's almost like a barge type effect, resistance type effect, and And again, it's something that you've got to be very conscious of with your leg kick. You're also going very deep with your right arm. Both arms are going down real deep, and then you can see finishing well below the hip line, which means it takes a long time to get that hand out through the surface into the recovery process, and it's really not doing anything. I really feel like with both arms, your patterns are fine. You're just in a position where you're just way too deep. I really think you want to concentrate on being a little shallower below the surface of the water, and also work on that finish sweep. Do a lot more double arm backstroke to work on a finish sweep that snaps the wrist right here as it exits the water, coming out past the hips, and it will really help a lot. Tighten up on that leg kick. Kind of have that errant left leg once in a while. It acts like an anchor. This in breaststroke would be about what we would call kind of like streamlined type position. And again, this is again, knowing what you've learned in camp is that, again, this is kind of a barge effect right here. Is a big area of resistance, the water coming right through, boom, barge right here. And it's real important that you have the whole body in an extended straight line. The legs are just a little kicking, just a little too much down. You want to kick a little more towards the surface. And again, the hands need to be a little shallower, just below the surface of the water when they start the stroke. Again, the real key is position. Don't let the hands get too deep. Keep them nice and shallow, just below the surface. And again, resistance to forward motion, having this head down, looking, right at the bottom of the pool. Very important. You can see the hands up top here, flaring to the outside. And this looks, the pattern that they're following is looking pretty good. Again, just a fraction too deep is where they are. Again, the pattern's fine, except instead of, again, being in this position right here, you're down a lot deeper than you should be. Now way too deep. And the net result here is to get your hands forward at this point. This is resistance. Again, you're going to create a kind of a barge effect right here, because you have to pull your shoulders back in order to get your hands out of the water. And you can see right here, again, you've got your arms about in this position, and 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe about 5 frames of no movement from when I started. Probably about 5 to 8 frames of no movement in there with your suit line on this line. And again, a lot of it is just the process of lifting your hands and then moving them forward. And again, it creates a tremendous amount of resistance that you have to be aware of. The other area is here you've got your knees way too deep below the surface of the water. You want to be about in this hip line, knees, ankles, feet in this position when you kick your legs, and you want to be just below the surface of the water, just fractionally below the surface of the water, palm down when you start your leg drive in this position. So the major key that you work on here is one is that hands have to be a lot shallower, a lot closer. Throughout the entire stroke, they hardly go below the surface of the water. It's hard to believe, but that's the way it has to be in order to make the stroke work. Don't get the elbows so far back past the shoulder line, and be a little more conscious of your leg position when you start your leg kick. Don't let your knees drop too deep, and do a much better job in your streamline position. Okay, we're going to look at the arms in kind of concert, but focus mainly on the right arm. Enter and extend, that's good. Left arm right now is in its final phase. Here's your wrist right here, wrist going out right there. And again, snapping that wrist, and that's really good. Now that's exactly where I'd like to see that right arm at this point. Perfect position. Again, the only thing here, remember what I said about here, you're in a position where you're kind of looking off in this direction, and you really want to be looking down here. And it gives again the body a much better profile. Remember, the distance between this arm and the head creates a certain level of resistance that you've got to be concerned with. So be conscious of what parts of your body, again, buffeting up against the water when you swim. Right arm. Again, what I'd like to see here, initially what I'd like to see is making sure that you get your elbow up, and I don't feel like you're getting your elbow up high enough. Again, pitching the fingertips down towards the bottom of the pool. Again, making sure, again, that that elbow is up above the wrist joint. And then the fingertips pitch down towards the bottom of the pool. And you can see you're into the finish sweep now with your right arm below the surface. And you're lifting your head. You can see again, here's a little gap right here. This little gap, real important. Again, half your head should be down in the water, and your head should be rotating more, not lifting your head to breathe. Again, this is kind of what I call a barge effect, resistance to forward motion effect. That, again, it's just little things, little subtle things, but they all add up. When you put them all together, they all add up. So here we are, snap, just finished a major portion of our right arm, and you can see right here that what I'm talking about, resistance. See, if this arm was out in this position, that fully extended position, again it would be out in this position. And again, if this head was in a perfect streamlined position in terms of the being in the underneath, partially underneath the surface of the water, you'd have a much better profile right here, and you'd get more potential out of this power phase of your right arm. Whereas here, your hand's a little deeper. And again, it's not doing anything right now to make you go faster. It's only just, right now, all it's doing is getting in the way. And again, you can see a much bigger profile, a much more resistance-oriented profile in this freestyle on the left side. As you get into the stroke, again, I can see your lats working, so I know they're working, but again, my concern is that you want to make sure the elbow is up. And make sure the elbow is on top of the stroke in this position. I mean, the basic mechanics are just slightly where I'd like to see the elbow up a little higher on both arms in that kind of initial out sweep phase. And again, it's something that you're swimming fairly strong right now, but those are things that fall apart on you when you get tired. And elbows tend to collapse and don't hold the water nearly as well. So if you learn to have them up in a high position all the way through the catch out sweep phase, then it helps a lot. So breathing pattern, get the left arm in that number one position when the right arm finishes, and again, you're doing some real good things there. You're really close to doing some good things, and again, work on all those strokes, identify one thing at a time, work on one thing at a time, and probably a lot of catch-up drill with your freestyle probably help you have a better feel for getting the elbow up underneath the surface of the water as you work the S pattern. Best of luck. Work hard.